No, this is a basketball podcast, of course, but everyone is talking and thinking about Jalen Hurts and will number one be on the field against the Giants and what's going to happen with the division and the first round bye and da 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 da. What are you thinking, man? Is that something on your mind?
That's honestly not at the top of my mind. I think it's unavoidable though.
I love the honesty. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think you inaccurately framed the way things are in Philadelphia right now. But for me, yeah, I will be aware of whatever happens, but I won't be laser focused on it the way some are. But yeah, we shall see. Definitely a lot of intrigue with the Birds.
If it was Premier League soccer, you would be paying attention.
Well, if Hull City were in the Premier League, that's my team. So they are in the championship right now, and hopefully back in the Premier League someday soon.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely not tuning out the Eagles entirely. But we have folks far more focused on the Birds, and I'm sure the Eagle Eye Pod will have great coverage of whatever happens, coming up here on Sunday.
You gotta love the beat writer saying, "I'm locked in, bro. What are you talking about? I'm locked in, ready to build career skills in 2023. I'm sure you are. We'll do so by applying to Wilmington University today and get started by January 9th. Learn more and apply at wilmu.edu. Upskill, reskill, or start fresh in 2023 with the degree or certificate from Wilmington University. Wilmu works for you. Apply today to start January 9th. Yeah, baby. It is the Sixers Talk podcast brought to you by Wilmington University. Wilmu works. Danny Pommells. And back in the saddle, it is Noah Levick with us. Ben Barry in the cut, our producer extraordinaire. Noah, were you naughty or nice this holiday season? Which is it?
I guess it's always a combination, but I don't think I was especially, naughty or did anything.
Just right down the middle. Right down the middle.
Terrible in a moral sense. I would hope so. What would be my, self-assessment there?
Yeah. Hey, things are nice for the 76ers right now, which surprisingly, if maybe some people out there don't know it, but 11 straight home wins for the Sixers team, the longest streak in the NBA this season. Sneakily good in some aspects are this team, and they need to be good right now to keep up with the way the Eastern Conference is getting really top heavy there. Thankfully, the Brooklyn Nets lost, so a little bit of breathing room there for the 76ers to try to catch up with those teams at the top of the Eastern Conference. But last night in South Philly, a great test for them, and without Joel Embiid, an opportunity for them to maybe create some distance between the teams directly below them in the standings and catch up to the teams above. As I mentioned, the Pacers being the team directly below them who came to play last night. As you might expect, they've been playing well this season, and they often give the Sixers a hard time. But great atmosphere in the arena. We got overtime last night. But let's start with a little bit of the housekeeping and the injuries. Joel Embiid, left foot soreness. It feels like they were trying to sneak in more of like a load management day for Joel. But is this more than just him getting some rest, Noah?
I do think left foot soreness is accurate. I don't think that is at all made up. We saw at the end of the previous game, he had what James Harden called one of those Paul Pierce moments where there was a lot of immediate concern when he went down awkwardly, and then he's even putting his arm around Harden for support, and it seems like, oh boy, something serious might be happening here from an injury standpoint. And he did reach down, at his left foot, during that sequence, and he had a mid-foot sprain, on his left foot earlier this year. So I think it's fair enough if there's some concern. But yeah, according to Doc Rivers, not something he was complaining about right after the game. And the expectation is that it's a day-to-day injury. And we shall see if that is indeed true. Sixers taking on the Bulls Friday night. And, we'll learn in a few hours what his status is for that game. But yeah, it does not appear that Embiid suffered any horrible injury. Obviously, he finished out the previous game quite well, scored 42 points against New Orleans, and he had played 16 straight. So, yes, I think that absolutely has to factor into the decision for the Sixers, where if there's any uncertainty, any concern about his health, the prudent move was to sit him last night. And obviously, it's great whenever you can win a game without Joel Embiid. And they've done it 6 times this year. They improved to 6-3 without him. And not exactly how they drew it up. They squandered a rather significant lead, as they have become accustomed to doing, but pulled it out again in OT, which is really encouraging. And as you said, this home winning streak is remarkable. 11 straight in Philly, not easy to do, and a little sweeter, I think, when you get it done without your best player.
And probably just a bit of luck for the 76ers is that they're playing, one of the quicker teams in the league and the Pacers, and they sit Joel to go with a smaller lineup to try to keep up with what the Pacers do. PJ Tucker getting the start along with the 3-guard rotation. And he got nicked up. Did we get a report on exactly what happened with Tucker or how he's doing?
Yeah, Doc Rivers said it was a knee to the thigh. So I guess the technical term would be contusion. But PJ Tucker being PJ Tucker, he was obviously determined to tough it out and re-entered this game in the second quarter. And to me, it was obvious he was well below 100%. He was gritting his teeth, I think, in a literal sense. And I just noticed him doing his thing at halftime, getting set for the second half of the game. He was grimacing as he's taking these corner threes, and it's just evident that on many occasions this season he's had this default mentality of playing through pain. I think the most notable physical issue for him continues to be a dead right hand. His shooting hand is not at all what he would like it to be. And there's a nerve issue that he's been working through, and obviously is affecting his jump shot and his offensive game and making him a worse player. So he, I think, just has this mentality over the years of, if I can run, like, I should be on the court. But it is tough, I think, for the Sixers at times where he's telling the coaching staff, telling the trainers that he's good to go. And that's true in a technical sense, but I think we are getting a worse version of PJ Tucker than the norm, even the 37-year-old norm. So, yeah, the Sixers did go to the small ball. Tucker wasn't a bright spot in that lineup, but absolutely the 3 guards, there continue to be promising signs that those guys complement each other really well, and I think should be an appealing late game option often for the Sixers. One of the reasons for that, in my mind, is D'Anthony Melton is just extraordinarily versatile, and he's such a great guard rebounder. He always feels like he comes up with some big boards too. There was one in overtime where he just ripped it, and then 15 seconds later, he's knocking down a key corner 3. Just someone, I think there are so many reasons to trust late in games. I think the reputation with him coming to Philly is he had streakiness as a shooter, but I think in my mind, he brings so much high shooting. And of course, when the shooting is on point, that's a nice cherry on top for the Sixers, and just another reason to be high on the 3 guards that the Sixers can play late in games.
Yeah, man. We'll get back to the front court and Montrezl Harrell and all that went down with PJ Tucker getting nicked up. But let's stay with this guard conversation and D'Anthony Melton. And I had tweeted, after the Pelicans game, that if Joel Embiid, obviously the MVP for this team, whatever that designation or title is for the guy right under the team MVP, that would be D'Anthony Melton for me, because I talked about in the last podcast just his versatility and what he brings to the team and how much they wanted a player like that. And here he is in the fold, and somebody you just got to keep with the team and re-sign and figure it out. I know the dollar value will be high, and Tyrese Maxey needs to get paid and all that, but this is the guy that you have to keep around because of the things that you mentioned, man. And the help defense and the versatility and you mentioned the jump shot. I think he hit 5 threes last night, and much like you think about when you see Tyrese Maxey shoot and Joel Embiid in the mid range where you expect it to go in, I'm getting that way with Melton because the form, the way he squared up to the basket, it just looks the same every time, and that's what you want is to, you know, go up in the air and come down and basically the same area and shoulder square to the basket, the feet and the whole bit. The stroke just looks incredible, and he just loves those wings, shooting the three ball there, and it's just fun to watch. And he's dependable and hit a late three, I think, from the corner that really helped them get back in it. And just a fun player to watch, man. You just expect more and more from him the more that he's on the floor. And like you said, he complements what they do really well because he kind of fills in the gaps for whatever it is, similar to the role like Tobias Harris has been playing to be, you know, interchangeable. He just can do what the team needs and play off of the other players that are on the floor. So just fun to watch, period, point blank. And I was expecting to see more of his bounce and how he takes it to the basket affect this team, but it seems, you know, more defense and his shooting that have really helped the Sixers in my eyes.
Right. I think if you were to identify a clear weakness in his game, it's the finishing. So yes, he has the athleticism and the vertical pop around the rim, but he's still
his
not
touch.
always.
Yeah, his touch a little bit in that in between area isn't quite there.
Yeah, not always refined with how to use it. You know, he'll make a great move and then the finish is lacking. There was a missed lefty layup last night that you wondered if it would cost the Sixers. And I think he was 5 for 8 beyond the arc and 2 for 7 within it as one illustration of that. But yeah, everything else, he is like an above average NBA player and often much better than that, you know, especially if we're talking defense. I think coming in, the expectation for most folks is he'd be a good sixth man. And it's been quite a long time since he's come off the bench. And sure, part of that is the team being shorthanded, you know, at least recently wanting to ease Maxey back into it following the foot injury. But man, he's just straight up a starter level NBA player. Now, whether that ultimately corresponds to him starting every game for the Sixers, we shall see. But that possibility, I think, is looking more and more likely. Part of that is PJ Tucker has been disappointing and his physical issues are notable. But part of it, I think, is just Melton is so good and so trustworthy. So, yeah, credit to him for, I think, exceeding many people's expectations and showing he's just a really valuable two-way player. It's not just defense with this guy. I think, you know, with the small lineups, his comfort as a screener and roller is awesome too. Get these switches that James Harden wants, and as a short roll playmaker, he's been better than Doc Rivers expected. He admitted that a while back. So just so many reasons to want him on the floor and like what you're getting when he is playing in high-stakes situations. And to me, it just stands out that he is extraordinarily comfortable in chaos. And, you know, the Sixers have had a lot of these wild games where it's helter-skelter and out of control or very near just on the verge of totally losing grasp on the game. And Melton, all right, corner three, keep my calm, same form. Like I trust myself to make this shot. And as you say, the fan base seems to understandably be buying him as well, you know, as a guy you can depend on late in games.
Yeah, man, come on. He fits that blue collar Philly mentality to a T, and the way he plays out there on the floor. And with the whole starting lineup thing, it's who finishes the game, right? That's who's out there in crunch time is who has the most trust and who the coach feels like can make the most impact. So I really think that if they can figure out their premium lineup, I think that's the task that is at hand for the 76ers coaching staff is to try to get the premium lineup on the floor. That okay, that might be matchup dependent and things like that, but for the best teams, the teams you know who's going to be on the floor when it matters. So hopefully they're able to figure that out on a consistent basis. And the schedule's a bit lighter here, and I think the Pacers are the only team out of the next 5 games, if you include last night, where the team has a winning record. So it's a chance for them to get victories and kind of get some momentum toward, an all-star break that's going to be creeping up on us here in about a month or so. But Joel Embiid, the December player of the month, we have to give him props for that. But I want to talk about the way last night's game transpired. You mentioned a little bit of the helter-skelterness that sometimes pops up with the Sixers. They blew a lead late, which allowed the Pacers to get back in it. And they eventually wanted an OT and were able to force OT thanks to some fortunate opportunities, to Tyrese Maxey steal and some defensive stops. But the Pacers got back in the game partly due to the fact that they wanted to target James Harden on the defensive end and on their offensive end, the Sixers on defense. So they wanted to isolate him against Tyrese Halliburton, what we saw a lot of. And after the game, Harden felt like he had stepped up to the challenge. I felt like Tyrese Halliburton had him on skates a bit, and it was not as strong a representation of Harden's defense as he might have said. So what did you see from how those isolation scenarios where they would try to pick to get Harden on Halliburton or on the primary ball handler to try to take advantage of him? What did you make of that? And do you feel like that's something that other teams can use as a prototype when they're facing the Sixers and need to get a bucket in crunch time?
Yeah, to be fair, I think we've got to acknowledge Halliburton is like an all-star level player, so he makes a lot of guys look a little off balance and not steady.
But that's the bit, right? That's the NBA bit. You're going to be facing an all-star. If you're the primary point guard on an NBA team, you're going to probably be facing someone of that caliber, of that ilk, at least ball handling wise. But not to interrupt you,
definitely fair to expect that Harden being targeted, won't end just because he had a couple of nice moments late in this game. Specifically the block on Mathurin, had the steal on Halliburton late as well. Yeah, I thought at least the effort level was legitimately commendable from James Harden. Of course, it would be concerning if the effort was lacking, in the dying minutes of a close game. But I thought even before that, there were a couple of plays in the second quarter where he got called for a couple of harsh fouls where it looked like he'd had a block and a steal. And you could see off the ball, he was paying attention. He cared about making an impact on defense. And yeah, the Sixers need that from him, even though they are asking him to expend so much offensive energy, especially on Embiid-less nights. But yeah, absolutely with Harden, I think you always expect the defense is going to be a mixed bag. It's never going to be wholly positive. But I do think last night was a relatively good one for him. I think, isolation defense against a speedy young player might sometimes be problematic. But man, his post defense continues to be just like downright strong to me. There was a play against Miles Turner where you notice, man, he's not budging at all. And there have been a few of those this season where when you try to isolate James Harden in the post, he's actually not the guy you want to do that against. Somewhat counterintuitively, I think. I think maybe some teams learned that. Based on his Houston days, where, of course, that team switched 1 through 5 and Harden got tested a lot. But still, especially when the Sixers are, playing strong defensive lineups, Harden's often going to be the guy you go at. And I think you want to do that more on the perimeter than the post. And I think also for the Pacers, you could argue they should have had a little more offensive variety, which we've talked about with the Sixers. Halliburton versus Harden look good a lot of the time, but perhaps it would have benefited Indiana in that overtime if they switched things up a little bit. And move the ball from side to side a bit more. I thought really their comeback was more about the Sixers shooting themselves in the foot with turnover after turnover, fueling Indiana's transition offense than anything that was happening in the half court. I mean, the Sixers had a great night taking care of the ball. They had 5 turnovers, and then from the 5:48 to 3:02 mark, 5 turnovers in that stretch of under 3 minutes. So to me, that's why they blew this lead. If you're looking for,
well, the Pacers went into that trap where they were trying to force those hard double teams and make the Sixers make some decisions. So that definitely helped change the tide a bit. And before we move on to something else, I definitely feel like you make a great point, and Harden does deserve credit for stepping up in an instance where normally you would hope that PJ Tucker would be on the floor to guard maybe the team's best player on the opposing squad, but he wasn't available or at the capacity you would want him to be. And it was Montrezl Harrell who steps up and brings a lot of that energy. We're going to get to Harrell in a minute and discuss some of that front court without Joel Embiid, but some important messages to pass along. If opioid addiction, if you didn't know, is a national public health crisis, the Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanizes the disease of addiction. Download the new season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. And if you're injured, for over 70 years, Lundy Law has been the #1 personal injury law firm in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Their services are exemplary. Their results are exceptional. Call 1-800-LUNDY-LAW to get the money you deserve. And the Sixers deserve to get some credit for pulling out a win against the Pacers in OT. Montrezl Harrell coming up big, providing some energy, not only on the offensive end where he is known to catch wreck. It was the defensive end with 4 blocks for Montrezl Harrell off the bench. In fact, the first player to do that for the 76ers to have 15 points or more and 4 blocks since Spencer Hawes. There's a name for you. But what'd you make of Montrezl's contribution last night? And it's just good to see him feel himself, because I like high energy players like him. But he also talked about in the post game, overcoming some adversity and things earlier in the season. Did you have any insight into what that might be, or what he might be referring to?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I read that more as, he had the uncertainty this offseason with his legal issues, and I think just not knowing what that would mean for his NBA career. And yeah, the Sixers did sign him late this offseason, and it was for the minimum. I mean, this is a former 6th man of the year, and he'd been making more money. He'd been more of a mid-level, sort of guy before this. And I think the Sixers were glad that he was available.
Came down to their price, right?
Yeah. And of course, there were the relationships with Morey, with Rivers, with Harden. And I don't think there's been a lot of doubt internally that he's capable of these sort of nights still. Definitely his best one in my eyes as a Sixer. And yeah, defensively, it's been a negative on many occasions, but this was an exceptionally good performance for him, relatively on the defensive end. Some just really well-timed blocks. He talked post-game also about how he takes a lot of pride in having good timing on those charges and having the willingness to sacrifice his body. And he took a huge one late in this game. And I think just was totally dialed in on both ends of the court. And look, for him, the bottom line is just when you score efficiently the way he has throughout his NBA career and had not really done on many nights as a Sixer. And obviously you can't ask for much better than, I think, 8 for 9 from the floor. And sure, some of that was point blank, little dunks and
hey, you take what you got,
Yeah, but we did see some variety to his scoring too. There was a little jump hook, there was some half-court offense, there was some transition offense, and I think just the constant threat he poses as a roller we saw how valuable that can be, and also that it's viable in these smaller lineups as well. And then I think the passing continues to impress at times. There are some real high-level instincts that he has where the ball's not in his hands for more than half a second. He's already firing it to the corner, or he's spotting the guy who's leaked free along the baseline. So there's definitely still some real skill to his game offensively. I think it's fair enough if you think his game has declined some from those 6 Man of the Year days, just based on the production and based on the efficiency taking a real dip. But he still got something left in the tank, most definitely. And I think whenever he steps on the court, he's eager to prove himself. You still see that hunger, and you still see that gratitude, to have these opportunities to be playing in the NBA, and stepped up in a huge way for the Sixers. Yeah, good stuff from Montrezl Harrell, and you have to imagine this means he'll be getting consistent minutes for quite a while longer, and have continued opportunities to prove that he's worthy of being the number one backup to Joel Embiid. And last night that continued to mean that Paul Reed was out of this picture.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And actually, I'm glad you brought up both of those points of being Joel Embiid's primary backup and the Paul Reed situation, because, man, I like the term in mothballs, because I just think that it's hilarious. It dates me a lot because I don't even think people even use or know what mothballs are. But Paul Reed gets another DNP CD, and he, and we talked about this on previous podcasts too. He and Montrezl Harrell have a similar high energy motor type of game, and Harrell is such an intriguing guy to me because of his journey, from Louisville to here, the scoring prowess that he has off the bench, because it's like him and Lou Williams are like some of the most prolific NBA scorers off the bench over the last like 5 to 6 years. But he has this like weird mixture of like humbleness, but bravado. Like he's like, on the court screaming and mugging the fans and like getting blocks and like standing there like a statue afterward, but like is also like self-aware in ways that you wouldn't think from the way he plays on the court sometimes. But you got Paul Reed there in a game where PJ Tucker goes down. You're going small, quicker, trying to keep up with the pace of the Pacers. But Doc Reed loves his veterans, man, and I don't know. Of course, Twitter and Sixers fans have been talking and paying attention to Isaiah Joe and what he's done, with the OKC Thunder, and they pull off that 150-point outburst, big upset against the Celtics, and people are lamenting the opportunities that he did or didn't get here in Philly. We could go to, other guys around the NBA, Jeremy Grant, Christian Wood. There are other examples of this, but Paul Reed, it seems to be another guy that's going to be kind of forlorn of, the mixture and combination of the opportunities he gets, the time he spends on the bench. You just wonder how that all plays out in Doc Rivers' head. And of course, we may never know exactly how he perceives the Paul Reed minutes and his, contribution to the team. But I felt like last night was a good game for him to be able to make an impact. But maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with that, although I will say Montrezl Harrell was so darn good that he
was playing great. Okay.
A lot of minutes. And Rivers has, though he teased a few times in the preseason that he was open to playing Harrell and Reed together, he's been, consistent in seeing it as both guys are fives. Neither is really capable of playing power forward in the modern NBA, where spacing is so valuable. And honestly, I do think a great example of that is how fantastic the George Niang James Harden pairing is. So there are many nights where, theoretically it would be fantastic to get Paul Reed opportunities at the 4, but George Niang should be getting a lot of minutes next to James Harden, especially in lineups that don't include Joel Embiid. So there are some legitimately tricky factors here for Doc Rivers, but I do agree that Paul Reed is 100% worthy of regular season minutes, and yeah, he's continued to frustrate Doc Rivers here and there with the occasional mistake, but young players make mistakes, and Paul Reed has actually given the Sixers high-quality playoff minutes. He's better than the typical, unproven young player. As we've talked about, he provides much more defensive versatility and just overall skill than Harrell. And offensively, yeah, he's a worse player at this stage of his career. He's unrefined with the finishing around the rim. He's still learning the nuances of the short roll and the DHO and how to move the ball quickly to his teammates. But I don't think he's at all a zero offensively. I think he has flashes of promise and has some intriguing quirkiness that has led to big G League numbers and nice moments as well in the NBA. I think we have seen improvement from him with knowing how to get shots off quicker around the rim and how to play as a smaller center. So there are a lot of variables for Rivers to consider. I don't think it's always a simple situation, but I think just zooming out, should Paul Reed be getting DNP after DNP? No, I don't think it would be great if that continued. I think there should be ways to work around that. And I think lineup experimentation continues to be warranted because the Sixers haven't been full strength very often. And I don't see any problem if there are some weird lineups that get a few minutes mid-season that maybe do include Reed and Harrell sharing the floor. I think PJ Tucker, of course, continues to kind of loom over all of this. And if he did miss some time, that would simplify some of these decisions. I think he would be pressed into getting Paul Reed some minutes at power forward because you're not going to want to play George Niang, 25 plus every night. So that's how I see it right now. I don't think last night was an egregious example of Paul Reed, facing the consequences of Doc Rivers being anti-youth or anything like that. But I do think in the big picture, it wouldn't be great if he finds himself just totally out of this mix. I think he is worth keeping in this discussion in some way.
Yeah, and especially this lighter schedule, I say lighter in quotes because these just aren't teams that are probably going to be in the playoffs. The Bulls, OKC Thunder next week, and I think is it a Pistons home and home in between? Who is the
two straight against the Detroit Pistons, who have actually picked up some wins since we last saw them. Which, I don't want to be insulting to the Pistons, but that's a little mind-boggling to me based on the product we saw when they faced the Sixers, where they just looked like a process level basketball team. But any given Sunday, I guess, in the NBA, to that point, as you said, the Nets just had their winning streak snapped by the Chicago Bulls, who are a sub 500 team. So yeah, anything can happen, but definitely fair to call the next little stretch for the Sixers one where they should pick up some wins and be able to get some guys minutes like a Paul Reed. I think that's I agree with that.
You want to know one of the weirdest moments from last night's game for me? The walk-off interview was with Montrezl Harrell after his contribution. I think he finished with 19, 4 blocks. He's talking to Kate and Allah, and he had some saying that it was next man up or, tired of being humble or something, some type of saying that he was him and his boys say. And one of the boys that he mentioned, me and my close friends, we always say that, or maybe whatever phrase he used was somebody one of his confidants. And he's my boy, he names a guy that you would know, maybe he said Lou Williams or somebody he said that you would know. And then he's KJ McDaniels, what? He and KJ McDaniels are tight like that? I had no idea that he would pull that name out of the air. But I guess that time in Houston, what did you know about that?
Yeah, I guess there's a little overlap. My impression is like most guys that share a locker room with Montrezl Harrell like it and develop a good relationship with him. He did shout out Lou Williams a couple of times, at the podium. Right. I also thought it was funny. He did not expect a podium game, so he got dressed and sort of said something about he was ready to talk, but his expectation is just, all right, I'll speak to a few guys here in the locker room, because I think now the norm for him is the podium is usually reserved for the stars. It's reserved for James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris. But, Sixers PR staffer said, oh, no, you're at the podium tonight. And I don't think he minded that at all. I think you saw he loves talking about his passion for the sport. And he enjoys talking some hoops. And yeah, that was a cool moment for him. And I think he's been through a lot of ups and downs for someone who's only 28 years old. And this was definitely his highest moment yet as a Sixer. And they absolutely don't win this game if he's anything besides excellent. And he was.
Hey, man, it is after Christmas. The NBA season is in full swing. So if you haven't gotten down to the Wells Fargo Center, a couple of games here coming up. I'll be there next Thursday. If you bump into me, please say what's up. Noah's there every night. So if you see him, that's no big deal. But hey, we appreciate you guys as always. Noah, what's popping on the website for you?
Yeah, so we had our observations, trying as well as we can to capture the chaos of that game and some of the key takeaways. And then coming up a little later today, just a piece on the bench, specifically the big night last night, and then also a little of the big picture stuff we touched on. We didn't even, mention Matisse Thybulle, so I will tease that there will be a little Thybulle content in there, how Doc Rivers sees things with Matisse Thybulle, who was actually a team high last night in plus minus, and I think continues to make a case for heavier minutes. But only 4 bench guys for the Sixers.
I didn't feel that way when he was bricking those corner threes, though. I didn't feel that way.
He did one. There was one where he got a wide open shot when they trapped Harden, and he made it. But hey, Sixers bench, 4 players, 48 points on 19 for 25 from the floor.
Gotta love it. Gotta love that.
I will have something on that second unit, both in terms of last night and in terms of the big picture. If you so care to check it out on NBCSportsPhilly.com.
Next podcast, something I was thinking about, just a little teaser. I want to know if you have more faith when it comes to the Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals, who comes out of the East with the established teams that we've seen do it before. Because, there's the 1 through 7 are all like 20 wins or more. I think 26 or 27 wins is the top of the East. And then the Heat have 20 and they're 7th place. Are you more confident in the teams like the Celtics, the Bucks, the Heat, who you've seen do it before? Or are you confident that there might be a chance for one of these other teams who haven't, but are in that right there in contention, the Nets, the Sixers, or the Cavaliers? Which of those do you have more confidence in to come out of the East, represent the East, or make a strong playoff push as things stand right now? So something I was thinking about. We could tease that for next week in the next podcast. But check out Noah's work on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. Thank you for listening, as always, to the Sixers Talk podcast. Easy for me to say. For Ben Barry and Noah Levick, I'm Danny Pommells. We're brought to you by Willington University, Wilmue Works. See you next time.